My mic wasn't on, so all that time you just saw me talking. So welcome to the Entrepreneur Master Series. I am the real Jason Duncan. It's Tuesday, April the 19th, 2022, and it's almost 3:30 p.m. Central Time. We're going to get started here in just a minute, but you're going to have to bear with us. We're using a brand new Webinar Geek software. It's called Webinar Geek, and it's brand new to us. This is the first time we've ever done this, and we've been trying to get this trying to get this running. So it looks like we've got people who are here live. I can't see who you are, where you're from, or anything. I haven't learned how to use this software yet. So you're going to have to bear with us. I promise it's going to be worth it if you'll stick it out. We got the great Jake Milner, the CEO of Nurture, is going to be with us today talking about ways to reduce your overhead and make more money as a business owner. So, so bear with us. I'm going to try to turn my camera off and I'm going to turn the mic off, and we're going to get started in just a couple of minutes. But don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back. All right, just checking back in with everybody. I can now see the viewers. I see who's here. So thanks for being there. It put our co-presenter in as a viewer as well. So we're trying to get him in so that he can so he can co-present. So just bear with us. We're going to be right there with you. We're a little early anyway, so thanks for being early. We'll be right back. All right. It looks like we've got Jake with us today. Hey, Jake, how are you doing, man?
We made it. I'm good, man. How are you?
Well, I'm so glad you're here. We're still a little bit early. It's 3:29 Central Time, and we. This is so funny for you and me, and for Wendy. We've been behind the scenes trying to figure out how to make this crap work. But it looks like we got several people here who have joined us already. They're a little early, so we're going to give everybody just a few minutes to come in, and I got to send Wendy the link. It looks like she got the viewer link. Look, Wendy, if you're watching this, I'll send you the link in just a minute. So I'm gonna turn the just the presentation on where it's just the first screen, first slides. I'm gonna turn my mic off, and I'll be right back. Jake, you can turn your mic off as well. Just as a reminder for those of you that are coming in, we're going to be getting started here in just a couple of minutes, so bear with us using a brand new technology. So we'll be right with you in just a minute. All right. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to start off again by saying thank you for joining us here today. This is a new software that we're using called Webinar Geek. And boy, I tell you what, it's been a humdinger trying to learn how to use this thing. We've been Zooming for so long that using any new technology is different. You may be saying, Jason, why are you using a different technology than Zoom? Zoom's great. Well, Zoom is great for meetings, but for webinars, and it's also good for webinars, but for webinars, it's not optimized to do registrations and to get things ready for webinars the way that I want to do webinars. So we're using this new software. This is the very first one. And my big shout out goes to Jake Milner, our guest co-presenter today, for being so gracious and patient with us, because had this been anybody else, they would have already quit and said, I ain't doing this. You don't know what you're doing. So I want to say thank you to Jake Milner for being here. So let me do just a couple of moments of just opening statements and some announcements for the folks that are watching live. So we do these Entrepreneur Master Series. This is part of the TRJD family, worldwide family. So the real Jason Duncan, that's me, my coaching platform. I do these Entrepreneur Master Series, or EMS. I do these about once a month, sometimes twice a month. And they're about an hour to an hour and a half deep dive into some technical information about how you can run your business better. And as an entrepreneur, that's what you want. You want to learn more about finances and overhead and how to hire people and how to build culture. And so those are the types of things that we talk about in the EMS. And it's open to the public, and we record these and they go out on my YouTube channel, which is at The Real Jason Duncan on YouTube. So you can just go to youtube.com/The Real Jason Duncan. You can find an entire playlist of all the past EMS episodes that we've aired with all the different guests that we've done. So thank you for being here today for that. Also, I provide coaching services for entrepreneurs who want to learn how to live the exit lifestyle. If you want to learn how to get out of the weeds of the daily operations of your business and live the exit lifestyle without having to sell the business, that's what I do. I show you how to work less and how to make more. And it's not just more money, it's more time, more freedom, and more impact, more choices. So if you're interested in that, you can also go check that out at therealjasonduncan.com. And before we get to the end of this, I've got a special offer for you at the end today about how to get involved in my next Business Accelerator group coaching cohort with a big discount. We're going to be starting another one next month, and I'd love for you to be a part of it if you want to. So let me introduce Jake Milner to our talk today. Jake is a native Nashvilleian, and he and I met one another through the Standard here in Nashville, the Standard Club. During all the shutdowns with COVID, there was lots of Zoom meetings, and one of the meetings we had, Jake was on, and I was there too, and we got to know each other, and then we met in real life, and we become good friends. And he's been part of my coaching program, and he's got his own consulting business called Nurture, which he's going to talk about in just a minute, Nurture Group. And as a part of what he does, he works with small manufacturing and distribution and warehousing companies to consult with them on how to maximize what they're doing on a daily basis through inventory control, financial management, making sure that's going down. And he also has an amazing software called Nurture 360, which is a CRM and project management tool that helps small companies to large companies manage the process of sales and inventory and projects, which is really interesting because it was the first software that I'd ever been introduced to that did what we had been doing with our sales team with Excel. We've been tracking what kind of prospecting to sales meeting, from sales meeting to demo, from demo to sale, like what's the percent change through each of those? Because it doesn't go from one all the way to the end. It goes through a process. Where are they dropping out? when we were tracking it percentage wise, okay, we got 50% of the prospects turned into sales meetings, and sales meetings how many turned into demos? Well, we didn't have to do that with Excel anymore. Nurture 360 did that for us. So I'm sure if you've got questions, you'll be able to ask them in the chat box. We've got a chat box here in Webinar Geek. You can ask those questions. But I am very thrilled to have the CEO of Nurture Group, Jake Milner, here with us today. So, Jake, I'm going to turn it over to you, man. I'm going to shut up and let you take it from here and tell all of us how we can save money on our overhead. So go for it, Jake. Thanks for being here today.
All right, man. Yeah, thank you for having me. And thanks to all you guys for being on. So I've really been looking forward to this. And as Jason said, we've kind of had some technical things to work out today. So I feel like we've had 10, 11, or 12 or so dry runs of this webinar. So if I leave something out, you guys throw rocks or do whatever can happen in this fancy Webinar Geek. I'm waiting to see what it does here. So been looking forward to this, guys. When Jason asked me to do this, I was really excited because the question is always the same to me, right? The question is, how do we do this better? How do we make more money? How do we fix the operation here? And really the question transitions for me, it's always a sense of what do we do now? What do we set up today so that when the company is double the size, double the revenue, triple the revenue, we know we're scaling responsibly, right? And what does that mean? So I've worked with a ton of business owners where the main focus is always more, right? More revenue, more sales. Let's do more. Let's get bigger, which is great. And depending on, the long-term goals, it's, revenue certainly has its place, and cash is king, we all know. But for small businesses that are focused on growing and scaling to the next level, my team's focus is always, how do we lay a foundation right now and fix the operation to a point where there's a foundation set so that every dollar we scale, now you can send a sales team out to say, grow. And we know we're scaling responsibly. So with that, I'm going to kind of walk you guys through a few slides I've put together here, but there's really 4 phases of this to me. So in thinking about this, each one of these phases, I'm gonna do my best with the time we have to kind of walk you guys through some practical steps in each phase that if you started focusing on and thinking about today, they'd be big wins. So see if I can figure out how to do this. I did it.
So you got it, man. Good job. Good job.
Thanks.
You figured out how to get to the slides. Way to go.
We made it work. This is now a huge success, guys. So phase 1, right? Phase 1 is control the inventory. So what I would tell you guys is before you do anything, and whether you are a business selling products or you're selling services, think about this in terms of your business. But before you go anywhere, you've got to really do a deep dive into the products and services that you are offering. I can assure you that there is some shape or form of the 80-20 rule going on with your product, right? So we've worked with a lot of businesses. I've yet to find any that you wouldn't find some form of 80% of the revenue coming out of 20% of the products you offer. Okay, so, and this varies, right, guys? So I've seen this get as intense as, company could have been making 95% of the revenue they had with 20% of the product. Okay, so what's the problem? What does that mean? What are we looking for? Well, think about it, right? So especially in a product sales business, every one of the SKUs that you have in the offering, you're devoting resources to, right? So be it cost, your purchasing product, even space in your business, you're devoting resources to all the product across your offering. So you really need to do a deep dive in and figure out what that 80-20 rule is in your product and know what product sits in your core, meaning this is the core offering and these are the core products that are making up our money. And what is the margin contribution on each product, right? So you need to gather the data, get to the bottom of the story, figure out which products are making you the money, which products are bringing you an acceptable margin, and which products are not, and what do you want to do about it? And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But step 1 is really take a deep dive onto your offerings. 2, monitor your vendors, guys, right? So if you're if you're buying materials and supplies from different vendors, you need to really have a way, at least on a monthly basis, to monitor the cost and what's being offered from your vendors. Our team worked with 2 different companies over the past 6 months where after we did a financial dive in, we really saw margin just chipping away. So we're just losing margin. And come to find out, the vendors for the companies, right? The companies that were selling the businesses, the product, had raised their prices over the years, right? So this year comes, they do a price increase. Something else happens in supply chain. We all know the issues right now. There's a price increase. But our clients aren't necessarily monitoring or paying the best attention and watching what's going on. So all the while, you can imagine what's happening, right? The vendors are raising their prices. The customer is doing nothing. The customer, in this case, being the client. The customer is not reacting. The reseller's not reacting. So with every product that they sell, they're giving away margin, right? Going down and down and down. So really, really find a process to monitor the vendors. And guys, this can be as simple as putting a calendar reminder on your calendar every single month to ask your vendors for updated price lists, right? Simple as that. Dump reports, compare them against the price list, make sure you're maintaining margin. So the next thing in control the inventory, stop closing the business to count. So I would tell you guys that every time I see a post or an ad or an announcement for any small business that says, hey, we're closed next week for inventory, it makes me, it literally gives me just so much anxiety, right? I just want to get in the car and drive over there and say, no, don't do this, right? If you're closing the company to do inventory, now I get if your bank is asking you for an inventory, right? Like there may be a purpose to do a full-blown inventory count and just have a snapshot of here's everything we have on hand. But if you're closing the business to do the inventory, it means a couple things. The inventory is wrong, right? You're going to have to go through and correct all of the inventory. But what I would tell you is we know we can count, right? So you're going to count the inventory. You're going to go back into the system and say, here's everything we got. And you're going to feel good about it. And in 24 hours, it's going to be wrong again, right? So you need to kind of flip the mindset on inventory counts to think about what's the true purpose, right? So your inventory count is literally there to validate whether you're in control or you're not, okay? So if you start to think about the purpose is to validate controls instead of the purpose is to count, you're going to do things a little differently. So I'd say do cycle counts. And Jake, what's a cycle count, right? So take all the product you offer, figure out how often you need to validate the product, right? So we have this many SKUs in our company or this many pieces in inventory. What is it going to take you to get through the entire cycle in a month, right? So here's how many things we're going to show up and count every day. So you're doing little tiny bite-sized pieces that you're going to touch product every single day and just roll it and fit it into the normal course of doing business rather than be out of control and then shut down the company for a full week at the end of the year or something like that and try to count all the product. So we do an absolute ton of work in inventory control and process improvement around control and inventory. So if any of you guys have questions specifically to inventory control and cycle counts, glad to connect after this and we can kind of talk about your company. So that's it. Phase 1, control the inventory, right? What I tell you guys to wrap this up is bad inventory control leads to overstaffing, improper production scheduling, bad purchasing decisions, and late order fulfillment, right? So I'll tell you guys about, one client that we worked with basically had a 4-week turnaround for their production and manufacturing plant. So they made their own product. They told all their customers they would have a 4 to 6 week turnaround, right? So what would happen is orders would come in. Customers are expecting it in 4 to 6 weeks. They look at the inventory. They go, hey, we have everything on the order for the customer except for 2 things, right? So we're going to tell our production plant to make these 2 items. Well, here we go. Production lead time, 4 weeks. You get to the 3rd or 4th week, the 2 items come in. and they say, great, we have everything we need for this customer. And you go out in the warehouse and you realize you're missing one item. Oh, the inventory was wrong. Something happened. We're missing one thing. Well, what happens now? All right. People think this is just a order fulfillment issue, or we got to be faster in, pulling product. But what happens now is a rush order goes to production. So now production's got an order that they've got to make in 2 days instead of 4 weeks. And this happens over and over and over again. And the company hires more people for production because they think this is what it takes, right? All the while, they think their issue is we can't fill orders fast enough. The problem always boils back down to inventory control, always. So literally in this client, we fixed the inventory control. We stopped giving production rush work, right? Let the process stream out. They were able to go from 30 people in production and 6 in fulfillment. They went down to 15 people in production and 2 in fulfillment and served all the customers faster with more revenue the next year, right? So it's all an inventory control issue. So what I would tell you is never disconnect the two. When you have issues that you think are production, or you think are suppliers, or you think we can't fill the orders fast enough, trace it all the way back, and odds are you're going to find steps in your process that if your inventory was tighter, you would have known issues faster, you would have reacted sooner, and you wouldn't have the issues you have. But all of those things are costing tons of money to the bottom line. The worst part is if it's always been this way, you just think this is what it costs to run the operation, right? So really take a deep dive and fix there. Any questions you guys have before we move on here?
Yeah, Jake, I've got a question for you. So when you're looking at this phase one, control the inventory, most of what you talked about is referencing physical inventory. So we got physical products, whether it's tiny bottles of hand sanitizer, it's toys, it's tripods, for cameras or whatever happens to be. But does this also work for digital inventory or services inventory? Or for instance, if someone's in real estate and they're dealing with inventory, and if so, how would you adjust what you're advising if there's not physical inventory?
Yeah, absolutely. Little bit different if there's not physical inventory, but the concepts are the same, right? So I think more of the dots for this are going to get connected when we're at the financial part, but it's really about finding all the metrics that matter and what you have to live by. So in other words, the things that are relative, from physical inventory to offering services, same kind of activity for the services. Take your business across the last 90 days, look at all of your sales and revenue, all the business you did, and tie it back to an offering, right? So you're going to find, like we've done this, Jason, with, believe it or not, we've done this with salon and spas, right? So we've gone in, they're offering services, right? So they've got inventory in terms of people, but what they're offering are services. And you go in and you find out that there's 180 things on the menu, that they're carrying material and people and headcount to be able to offer 180 different things. And when you do the deep dive into the business, you find out that 90% of the revenue is coming from 6 offerings, right? So we're able to effectively wipe the rest of the service offerings and focus on the core and get really, really good at what the core business is, if that makes sense. And then more of this is going to get more of that around the service industry is going to be tied to finding the key metrics that you have to live by, which is more financial.
Understood. All right. Well, that's good. So on the controlling the inventory, what would be your guess, or maybe you know the data, of how much money is lost because people are not keeping up with their inventory correctly?
Oh, wow, man. So relative to the size of the company, but what I tell you is we've seen companies double the bottom line by fixing inventory control. And so to put this on scale, I'd bring one that we worked in that does around 10 million in revenue. They doubled the bottom line from fixing inventory. And what I would tell you is that came from a combination of, yes, the inventory's fixed, but that lets you see everything else more clearly. So we fixed inventory control, which led to improvements in production scheduling, which led to improvements in headcount, staffing, but all said at the end of the day, doubled the bottom line. Another company that we worked with on the smaller side, think about 2 million in revenue. Similar thing. What ended up happening is they actually increased their margin by another 50%, right? So more gross profit, slim down the expenses a little bit, not double the bottom line, but a big improvement. So relative to the size of the company, but when you start at the inventory control, the money definitely shows up.
I don't think most business owners and founders think about their inventory as cash. And I don't know who it was that talked to me. It was a coach, a business consultant that I'd hired. And in one of the businesses I do have physical inventory, lighting products, electrical equipment, et cetera. And we don't keep a ton of inventory. So I really wasn't concerned about it. But one of my coaches said to me, and it might have been you might have said, I don't remember who said it, but they were telling me, said, Jason, everything in that warehouse represents dollar bills. And you have to think about it that way. But those are dollar bills. Those are not widgets. Those are not light bulbs. Those are dollar bills. You've paid money. And if you lose that, if it goes out the back door without being counted, or somebody throws it away, or gets stolen, or it's not accounted for, you're losing dollars. So you should protect your inventory in the same way that you would protect shelves full of dollar bills in the warehouse.
100%. Absolutely. And whoever said that, I hope it was me, because whoever said that is 100% right. But it's true. And I tell you, a lot of things come out of, a couple of things. One, letting the inventory get skewed, but two, not understanding what your core product is, because things are mandated by vendors, right? Some of you guys may sell product and you have minimum order quantities with vendors. And all of a sudden you end up with hundreds of products that may not be making up tons of your revenue, but since you offer them, you're forced into buying minimums. And what happens if you have guys like us that come in and do a full audit and try to set safe levels around the inventory? We'd set a safe level for every single thing that you offer. And then you have a glaring picture of, hey, we're overstocked by $2.5 million of product, right? So exactly what Jason just talked about. When you have something like that hit you in the face and you realize $2.5 million is on the shelves in product instead of on the balance sheet as cash, it kind of wakes you up a little bit. All right. Any other questions around inventory real quick before I move on?
I think we're good, Jake. Let's go to phase 2.
All right. Phase 2, standardize the workflow. All right. So this is really about process improvement, guys. And this is going to be a little bit quicker here, but your operation needs to have systems and processes that are repeatable and you have training around, right? So this is where some of what I do and some of what Jason does crosses over. And the good news is I'm very good at this for other companies and I'm horrible about it for myself, which is why I do have Jason. But it's funny how that tends to work out. Sometimes the things you do all day and you focus on all day for others, I don't know, for whatever reason, I'm not very good at this with my own business. So Jason's in place and he's got my back. But you need to have systems and processes that are repeatable, and you need to have training in place so that you have standard operating procedures that you know how to train people on the process. So this is our process. This is what we do. This is what it takes. Here's the training. Is it documented? One of the things that I like to say is kill the heroes, right? So now I'm asking you guys to be the villain in the Marvel movie, except actually win. I don't think those guys ever win in the end. Like, I want you to actually go kill the heroes. And slow down. Now I'm not asking you to actually go kill anybody, but here's what we mean, right? Any of you guys have that guy or that girl in your company that you make it through a big week or you make it through a big day or project and you go, man, thank God we have so-and-so, right? We wouldn't have been able to do that if they hadn't figured this out, or we wouldn't have never accomplished this if it wasn't for Jake or Jason. And you guys know who those people are. Those are the heroes, right? So what I would tell you is outstanding performance, like over and beyond success, performance in somebody's role, that's a great thing. But you also need to finish the week and look at those heroics as red flags, right? So here's what I mean. When you run through a project and you go, man, we would have never pulled that off if Jason didn't have this one special skill that he just pulled out the heroics and made this happen, you've got to see that as a red flag and reward Jason, right? Be happy you have Jason, thank Jason, pat Jason on the back, but sit down with Jason and work with him to understand what happened, how did it go, document it, and turn these people into subject matter experts instead of relying on the heroics, right? And this is tough in a small company, right? Because I've seen a lot of small businesses, and I've been part of a lot of small businesses where we get through the week and we go, man, we would have never been able to do that without Anna, right? And we close the week, but what do? Nothing. We show back up the next week and we rely on her again. We show back up the next week and we go, man, that was close. She does it again, right? So really, when you're saying things like this out loud, when you're talking to people and you go, man, thank God for so-and-so, press pause, stop, sit down, think about it, run through the heroics that they provided, figure out how to turn the heroics into standard operating procedures and document them. That leads to setting the process up to work without you. So this, a lot of this where I focus is operationally, and this is kind of directly aligned with Jason's, exeter mindset and what Jason offers entrepreneurs, right? But you got to turn your mindset into focusing on running the process and it not needing you, right? So you guys are running small companies. The mission is to do more sales, more revenue, and scale to the next level. And if you are scaling to the next level, the mindset always has to be to set up the current process to run without yourself. If you can't do that, you're not going to scale. Finally, create an ops checklist for every single role. Sorry, Jason, go ahead.
I said amen.
Amen. Create an ops checklist for every single role in the process. And guys, this is as simple as, for every single role that plays a part in the process or in your business, have an ops checklist that says, here are the daily, weekly, and monthly things, the hard tasks that have to happen or get checked on or reports that have to be run to make this place successful. Because what you're going to find is as your business grows up and your business scales, when it's me and Jason and we kind of don't have any of this documented and we're holding everything together, great, not so bad. But when it turns into me and Jason and 15 other people and all this stuff is floating around in everybody's heads, things get tricky real quick. So phase 2, standardize the workflow, focus on SOPs, document what you're doing, and go find all the heroes and kill them. Any issues, any questions there, Jason? Anything you want to add?
Well, I have, of course, I've been teaching a long time about how the hero syndrome as entrepreneurs can ruin businesses, and it traps you in this prison of entrepreneurship because you put on your own cape and you go save the day. But honestly, until you said this today, I'd not really thought about the fact that, any heroes in the business can be a detriment to the business and can actually hurt the business, especially the hero entrepreneur who does everything. But if that's transferred to another key employee, that could also be a detriment to the business because there's not a backup or a fail safe. So you're jeopardizing the opportunity to win long-term by winning short-term when you have heroes in place. So I think you've made a great point.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's funny, Jason, is I used to call these guys in operations. I used to call them something else. I can't even remember what it was, right? And then a little while, maybe even a year ago, you said something to me about the hero syndrome, right? And you were telling me you've got to stop. You can't be the hero. And, operationally, like in a production and manufacturing and order fulfillment environment, I immediately went, oh, that's what those people are, right? So credit to you on the title. But now I've been using go kill the heroes ever since because that's what we're really trying to do. All right, I'm going to move on if there's no questions around this phase here.
I think that's great, man. Phase 2, standardize the workflow, Jake. All right, what's phase 3? All
right, so phase 3, develop profit-focused leaders. All right, so this is really an important one, right? So you've got your inventory under control somewhat. You've standardized your workflow. You know the process. You've got documented processes, repeatable systems. Now you've got to make sure you've got financial focus-minded leaders, right? So what do I mean by this? I can't tell you guys how many times I have seen small businesses, owners, leadership teams where we sit down and we talk about the company, talk about the business, and we go, okay, well, what's the plan? And everybody says, what plan? What do you mean? And I go, well, what's the plan? What are we shooting for? What's the revenue plan? What are we shooting to spend each month? And they go, oh, we don't know, right? We're gonna show up, we're gonna try real hard, and then we're gonna come back the next day and start over, right? Profit-focused leadership, you've got a plan in place, right? So this is, do it now if you don't have it. And then when you have it, do it every single year for the next year. So a lot of this is typically what we sit down and do in the last couple of months of the year and prepare for the following year. But you've got to have a revenue and expense plan set. So for the business, when you look month to month to month, I mean, really having a plan and a targeted goal for what the revenue is going to be month to month, what margin you're shooting for, right? So how much of that revenue is going to turn into gross profit? And then what do you spend every month? So in total operating expenses, this is really planning out your P&L for the full year and having a plan in place. Now, things don't go according to plan, right? Things never go perfectly, but you've got a plan in place, and that is steering the ship, right? So have a revenue, margin, expenses planned out. And then one of the exercises that I love going through with business owners is a true cash break-even point. If you guys want to reach out to me after this is over, I can show you guys or share a simple tool that I use with all of our clients to look at a true cash break-even point. And essentially what this is, guys, is you may have an idea of, what's break even, right? What do you got to sell in the month to break even, and past that point, you're making money. Small scale in businesses get this number wrong 99% of the time, Jason. I mean, all the time. Like, the number you think is your break even is incorrect. And so I've got a simple tool and kind of a step-by-step process that we've put together to help you find what your true cash break-even point is. But a lot of that is finding out where in the business you have cash going out of the company that really lands on the balance sheet and never shows up on the P&L, right? So most small business owners use their P&L. They look at all their expenses and they say, here's our break-even. Well, after you find that number, you've got money going out of the company for things like inventory. You've got money going out of the company to pay debt, right? If you have loans or you have credit card payments, the interest is on the P&L, but all the principal for debt, all the payments for inventory or buying product, all of that is going out of the company and is straight to the balance sheet, right? So we help business owners go find all those things, find all the places that cash is leaving the company that's not included in their break-even assumption, and pull it back into that tool so that you've got a true cash break-even. So what do we need to sell to turn into gross profit, to cover the expenses, and know that we're making true cash, right? We've covered the expenses, we've covered debt payments, we've handled our inventory issues, we've saved for taxes. This profit is true cash. So really get an understanding of what those levels are. But when you understand what the true cash break-even point is, now you understand what your true cash profit point is, right? So you got two different levels you're paying attention to. How do we break even, and how do we make the money that we really want to go make in true cash, right? Next thing, find the metrics that you have to live by, right? So I'm sure some of you guys have heard this. I had a mentor years ago that basically slapped me in the face with this, 10 times a week, but you can't improve what you can't manage, and you can't manage what you don't measure, right? So a lot of the times we run around the business and we go, well, we want to do this better, or we want to do more of that, or we want to do this better. And you go, where are we? I don't know, but it's not good, right? Drill down to the facts, find the metrics that you want to live by, be able to pull the data and know where you stand It's about facts over feelings, right? So a lot of us, if you're like me, you kind of stress and you go, well, this can't be good. This isn't good. This doesn't feel right. Get the facts over the feelings, figure out what the metrics are. And a lot of what we help companies do is find the 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 really key metrics that they really need to live and breathe by every single week and cut out all the fluff, right? So measure what matters is the message. And then finally, you're at a place where you can do some incentive planning, right? Because if you have a good understanding of what your true cash break even is, now you're not going out and planning incentives based off of a guess, right? So the other thing I tell you guys that I see a lot is incentive plans and like sales commission structures that really aren't financially validated, right? So we go halfway through the process and we figure out, hey, if somebody sells this much, we could give them X, or we could give them 12% commission, or whatever that may be in your business. Is it financially validated? Have you run all of the scenarios back to your financials and said, does this make sense for the employee? Does it make sense for their leader? Does it make sense for the company? Is this actually going to make us more money as it earns them more money, right? Which is the point of incentives and commission. But you need to have an understanding of true cash break even in order to plan proper incentives. I've also seen a lot of places that have incentives in place that are working against the company as the sales increase, right? So a lot of things can happen if these things aren't planned well and really validated back to the financials. So phase 3, make sure you're developing profit-focused leaders. And this takes a lot of work, guys, right? So if you're not financially minded, or you're not really savvy with business financials and financial planning, just get the help, right? Because it's important. It's important for the people in your company. It's important for the people that are leading your company. And what I tell you guys is people are a lot more likely to go after a goal and go after a plan if 2 things. 1, they understand it, and 2, they were a part of making it, right? So it's really about transparent leadership. Be as transparent as you possibly can be with your financials. You don't have to share everything, but find the metrics that you live by, have a good financial plan in place, and then get out there and share it with the staff that needs to know it. So profit-focused leadership is phase 3. Jason, any insights for us? Anything you want to add?
I tell you, I that last piece of information that you were sharing there, Jake, I know that there's lots of debate over transparent financials within companies. And I know you kind of referenced that depending upon, you said something about being transparent. You don't have to be totally transparent. And I know some entrepreneurs are extremely transparent. They show the books to everybody. I'm not that guy. I don't think that serves companies well. And I think that entrepreneurs are the only ones who really understand it, where employees will perceive things that aren't true about the numbers and they don't understand the long term. And anyway, that's my feelings about transparent financials. However, what I think your point was there and what you were getting at, and what I've experienced in one of my companies, is that last piece on the screen right now where it says incentive planning and financially validated, what we were able to do is put together incentive plans in my company to show, hey, if we hit X, if this thing happened, then that allows us X number of dollars in profitability, which is a percentage of which will go to you at the end of the day. So I don't have to show them overall revenue or overall profit or overall expenses, but I can say, hey, on this project, if we hit this percent, you get a percent of that. And having that certainly made all the difference in the world for some people, because some people need that type of motivation. So I appreciate you saying that. And I'm sure there are some people on here who are watching this that think, I'm 100% open book. Well, that's fine. Now use that to your advantage. Show people where, hey, when we make a mistake, this is what happens to the bottom line. And this is how we can't give you incentives and bonuses. And we can't do Christmas parties and we can't do whatever because we made this mistake that was avoidable financially. And we now don't have the ability to do that. So whatever you're doing, whether it's open, transparent books or some version of that, you got to come up with that financially validated incentive planning, which I think Jake is right on the money. And his other point was, if you are not good at it, hire somebody who is. That's why we hired Jake to help us do this stuff at one of my companies, because this is not my strong suit.
Yeah, 100%. And you're exactly right, Jason. The conversation around transparency is a major one, right? So like you said, there's some people on this call that may be completely open book. There's some people on this call that may go, I'm not sharing anything, right? Like this has kind of bit me in the past. I tend to live somewhere in the middle. The things that I find myself trying to help companies through is set up transparency around revenue goals, right? We don't always share the expense side and what that turns into in terms of profit. Those things are usually kept private, but there's a lot of things that you can do to take a sort of a tactical approach and a targeted attack on what you're after, right? So for example, without being completely transparent and saying, here's the money that we have to make, and if we make it, you're getting X, you find out what things drive that, right? So what things affect your margin? What things affect your gross margin, right? So one of the companies, just to give an example, we found out, hey, if we can actually manage returns under 2% of the sales, we know we're going to get to where we're going, right? So rather than go completely transparent and show everybody the numbers that we were 100% after and what the profit we were targeting, the incentive was around the main things that affected their margin, right? So for all the salespeople, it was, they were actively engaged with the accounts that they were managing and also doing some collections. But if they were able to find solutions other than returns, right, and manage returns at under 2%, and we knew if we did that for the team, where it would lead us financially, we were winning, right? So we found all the things that really make big impacts on the company's margin, right? The sales manager's going after a sales goal, and we knew if we had all the staff managing a return rate, that's how we structured all their incentives. So the manager was incentivized on the volume, all the individual reps were incentivized on the return rates, and a couple other things, but we really had all the bases covered there, and we didn't have to go wildly transparent to get where we were trying to go. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and what you're talking about there, for those of us who have read Good to Great by Jim Collins, which is one of the most pivotal and informative books of all time in business, he talked about something called your economic engine. What drives your economic engine? And one of the things you were referring to is there's some mechanism inside your business that drives your economic engine. You got the engine, which is usually sales or service of some sort, but there's some fuel that drives it. And one of my companies is in the lighting business. That's the one I keep referring to because it applies most of what you're talking about. That the economic thing that drove our economic engine in lighting projects was audits, going and doing audits. We knew that if we had a certain percentage of audits would turn into deals. So if we went a whole month and we only did 10 audits when we needed to do 20, we knew that the month was going to be bad regardless of sales because the audits tell us where we're going. So if you know that, like what you're talking about, Jake, you can set up financial incentives for what that economic engine driver is. So if it's audits or if it's returns, as you were talking about, we could just tell the team, hey, if we have less than 2% returns this month, everybody gets $100 or everybody gets a half a day off with pay or something. You can give those financial incentives, but you got to know what it is. And that's why hiring somebody like you, Jake, is important to come into that like manufacturing and distribution to find out where those holes are and help develop these phases. So great stuff, man. Great stuff.
Yeah, thanks. Absolutely, man. And something I'd throw in, and whether it's me and what Nurture offers, or it's someone like, Jason, who, your big thing is everybody needs a coach. And it's so true. The fact is, a lot of the times you are so in your process that you can't really see everything straight, right? And sometimes all it takes is a bit of outside perspective to get some of these things locked down and in place and get a good process around. But yeah, great point on the economic engine, and that's kind of where we drill down is, hey, what are the 2, 3, or 4 metrics that if you knew and lived by these and you fought against these every day, week in and week out, we'd be winning, right? And then that really transitions into the last phase, which is a performance to plan culture. So I'm going to move on to that if you are ready for that, Jason.
Let's go. Phase 4.
Phase 4, guys, establish a P2P culture, right? So what's P2P? P2P is performance to plan. So this simply means you got all the things that we're after. You got the metrics we're fighting against. How do you turn the culture in the company so that everyone knows what we're after, where we're going, where do we stand? And I like to tell people it's pretty simple. Like, how do you know when you got there? How do you know when you have a P2P culture in place? It's really simple. Just walk around the business, talk to all the staff, talk to the employees. And when you feel the chatter start to turn away from, whatever the normal talk and the normal gossip or what issues you had or what's aggravating, when you see the talk start to turn into, hey, where are we at? How we doing? Are we going to make it? Those type of things, you're well on the way, right? So what I like to tell people is, without meeting anybody in the group, I can tell you with 100% confidence, your team needs and wants one thing, right? They want to know what the goal is, and they want to know where they stand in relation to the goal. It's very simple. Like, this is very basic human stuff here, guys, right? So again, back to our last conversation, regardless of how transparent you're being around financials and sales and expense and profit targets, even if it's the metrics you're fighting against or what that economic engine is, as Jason referred to it, people want to know how we're doing, right? So if you've got people in your operation or in your business that show up and work real hard and don't have an understanding of what is success, how did we do, are we doing great, are we doing bad, and they just come day in and day out and do it, I promise you it's going to lead to disengagement, right? So number one, people want to know what the goal is. They want to know what we're after. They want to know how we're doing. So what does that mean for a P2P culture, a performance to plan culture? You've got to get things in place that make it simple for your team to understand how they're doing and where they stand, right? So whether these are dashboards that are live in the business, whether this is a weekly huddle, you got to have the things in place that share how we're doing against what we're after. So there's something else I'll share with you. I don't know if you guys can use these links that are in these slides or not. There's a couple of links throughout this, but this is one, 6 steps to performance to plan culture in a small business. I know I kind of lied to you guys here, right? Because this is 4 phases to build a foundation, and phase number 4 has 6 steps in it, right? So I'm cramming as much as we can in here. But there's an article out here. So if you guys can't use this link, send me an email or reach out to me, and I'll make sure that you get a link to this article that we've written. But it really walks through 6 simple steps to get to this performance to plan culture, right? So one we kind of talked about, have financial goals, have a revenue and expense plan. And, on the last phase, when I said develop, profit-focused leaders, depending on the company size, guys, right? Like that may be you. You may have a leadership team of 5 or 6 or 10 people. Make sure they're profit-focused and they're financial-minded, or like we said, get the help to get there. But this could be you, right? So have financial goals. Number 2, job descriptions and main objectives. So this is very simple and very often overlooked in small businesses, right? So if you think about these things as a year-long process, just imagine us at the end of a year planning for next year. Do we have a financial plan in place? We got it. Does everybody in our process have a job description and the main objectives? So what's the difference here? What I tell you is the job description, guys, that's exactly what it sounds like. You all have them. You've got them for your teams and your staff. Make sure you've got a good description of what their job is on paper that you can pull out and read and show to people, and it's up to date. Main objectives are different than job descriptions, right? So main objectives, think about these as these are the main objectives for the year or for the quarter or for the month. These things change, right? So we like to have job descriptions in place, and we like to have what is this job's main objectives this year. So going back to our last conversation, if you think about one of those salespeople, that would be just that, right? They have a job description in place that describes their job function as a sales or account manager, but their main objective for the year is, maintain less than 2% return rate throughout the year, right? So these main objectives are things that you can have 5 or 6 main objectives for that role and that person for the year that lead you where you want to go, that you can sit down and measure, right? So main objectives are going to be measurable. What results get us where we want to go? Number 3, what tools do you have in place? So like I said at the beginning, you got to have something that allows you to show the staff how they're doing against the metrics you're tracking or the objectives you have in place, right? So without spending a ton of time here, a lot of these things are in, if you guys have accounting systems or ERP systems in place, a lot of this is going to tie back to the reporting available to you. You might have live dashboards. A lot of what we have in Nurture 360, the software that Jason was talking about, is built specifically for this. So there's a lot of live dashboards in that without running reports or digging through a bunch of data. But it all comes back to find the tools that are best for your team that let you pull up, show how you're doing. They can access them. They know where they stand in relation to the goal. Number 4, the incentives. This is just what we were talking about. You got a job description. You got main objectives. What happens for the people that go well above and beyond the description, right? So have incentives in place. And if you've done your other phases correctly, you're able to run some analysis and validate these ideas before you launch them, right? So the only thing I would throw out here, and Jason, you may have some things to say on this from your experience. When it comes to incentive planning, guys, lots of the downfall is getting excited about something and launching something before you're ready. And the worst thing you can do as a business owner is to launch an incentive or tell your staff about an incentive that you are not ready to keep up with or is too hard to keep track of, and then roll it back. So that's just throwing it out there as a gem. Not sure if you got experience there, Jason, but that, in my opinion, is one of the top quickest ways to lose trust in a business. If you're looking to lose some trust, launch an incentive that you can't follow through with.
Yeah, and that speaks to making it simple enough that people can understand it. If you put a commission or a compensation plan together that takes 3 pages and 2 people to explain, that's not good. Same thing with incentives. It's got to be something that's simple to explain to your employees and that you can actually follow through. So if you don't, I remember, this is a true story. So I remember sitting down with one of my salespeople at one of my companies one time, and we had this long conversation about the comp plan, what we're going to do, what the incentives were. And we both agreed. He agreed. I agreed. Everybody was good with it. I had worked on this for a long time, but I never wrote it down. Like, I had pieces of it in paper. And then later when he came and said, "Hey, remember the thing you told me you were going to do?" Like, I didn't have it in writing. And so, yes, you can lose. It's a culture killer. You can lose trust and confidence. So keep it simple and make sure that you plan it in a way that you can follow through. 100% agree.
Yeah, absolutely. So number 5 in the process, guys, right? For a P2P culture, have a weekly huddle at least, right? So if you're like me, the business is running, you're running 150 miles an hour, like, you can wake up and realize that you just rolled through 3 months, right? Get a habit in place that you have a weekly huddle with the team. And depending on the business size, if that's got to be with the full team or you have to have weekly huddles with every department, find the habit in your company that brings people together at least on a weekly basis. And these are fast, right? So with our business, we like to think of it like we have a habit in place. We do this weekly, but it's fast, right? So this typically happens at the start of a day before the business starts running 100 miles an hour. And I mean, we're talking 7 to 10 minutes and we're done, right? So find a good agenda, hit these things weekly, but it's really, it's back to the metrics. What's the goal for the month? And just have an idea as you go through the month. Hey, here's how we're doing. Here's where we stand. Here's what we've got to do for the rest of the month to get where we want to go. Everybody good? Everybody have an understanding? Ready, break, right? Just keep people plugged in with an understanding of where we stand, right? So it's really important, right? So this is going to take like habit building. And a lot of the times, what this is going to take is you guys doing this weekly huddle, regardless of who's ready, who's on time, who showed up. You may stand around and do this by yourself, right? And talk to yourself, but do them. So they take place every single week. And And we've got some different things and templates and agendas that have worked really good throughout the years. If you guys want to reach out with some ideas there. But the point is, find what you're tracking, find the metrics you live by, drill it down to an ability to have a less than 10-minute weekly huddle. And you may obviously need to have conversations and meetings that last much longer than that as you go through the week. But this meeting has a specific agenda. You're sharing the key results. Everybody's dialed in, and then it's ready break. Last thing, guys, like really, really important, kind of how I started this phase is everybody wants to know what the goal is and they want to know how we're doing. Really important, reviews, right? You need to sit down and meet with your people. I like to say twice a year. At a minimum, you got to do it to close a year, right? Because now you've got job descriptions, you've got objectives in place. So what are the main objectives for this person as we go through the year? Ideally, you would meet them in the middle of the year to recalibrate, right? We're halfway through. Here's how we look on all these main objectives. Here's how I would score these. Here's where we need to course correct, if you will, and then go and finish the back half of the year. But make sure you got a process where you can sit down, meet, have open dialogue, score the main objectives, and then start over. I tend to use a process. This is going to be different for all of you guys, but I use the process of having main objectives and scoring them 1 to 5, right? So we'll have this role's got 5 main objectives this year. We're meeting halfway through the year or at the end of the year, and we're going to score each of those 1 to 5. How did we do against these? Those scores add up to a total, and the person's, got a percentage, right? So against my 5 main objectives, I was 92% for the year, right? And then you guys work that out, what that means in terms of any incentives or bonus or what have you, right? That's a different discussion, but make sure you have the main objectives and have the discussion, right? Otherwise, you're just ending up with a larger version of that day-to-day issue where people just come back and start over. And if you're not doing this, you're probably leading to a bit of a higher sense of turnover too. So again, 6 easy steps. Like what I would tell you guys about this performance to plan piece is each of these steps on their own seem really, really simple. At the same time, they take work, right? So they take work and they take intention. So you've got to be able to be disciplined and do the work. And just like I said in the last phase, if you can't, right, or you're not particularly inclined on one of these, get the help, right? Because even if you get the help to do it and you go through the practice once, odds are you're in a place where you're ready to do it for yourself year after year after year, and things are going to improve. Again, on a performance to plan culture, there's an article that I've written that kind of goes more in depth on each of these that's out there. So if you want that, I think that's LinkedIn, but anyway, you can find it LinkedIn or you can reach out to me directly. I'll make sure you guys get it. But that's what you have there, guys. So again, phase 1, control the inventory. Phase 2, standardize the workflow. Phase 3, develop profit-focused leadership. And phase 4, make sure you have a performance to plan culture. And that's kind of a mini version of the process that we run with our team at Nurture, right? So regardless of the business size, we tend to do a deep dive, show up, do a full audit and deep dive of process improvements, financial improvements that could be on the table. And then we step through every single one of these phases with our clients before we move to a support role. So this is really a mini version of the 4-6 month project that we run with everybody. But yeah, that's kind of, that's it in a nutshell, 4 phases, right? To build a good foundation. And once you have this foundation in place, now you're in a place where more is better, right? So sell, go get more revenue. And more revenue means you're making more money rather than just creating more work, right? Because at the end of the day, what we're really after, guys, is you can go do another 5 million in sales. You can go do another 10 million in sales. But if it costs you another 4 million or it costs you another 9.5 million to do it, are you winning, right? So lay a good foundation, make sure you got a good practice in place, and then go focus on blowing up the revenue, and you'll be in a good spot.
Well, Jake, that was good information. I hope everybody took notes. We got phase 1 is control the inventory. Phase 2 is you got to standardize the workflow. And that phase 3 is develop profit-focused leaders. And then phase 4 is establish that P2P culture, that performance to plan. So if you want to reach out to Jake, I would recommend you looking at hiring Jake to consult with you. If you have a small manufacturing, light manufacturing distribution plant, or distribution center, or anything where you have inventory. He's worked with jewelry companies, lighting companies. He's worked with cabinet companies. I mean, you name it. The guy is very, very good at what he does. And that's the reason I invited him to come into this session to be part of this with us. And just because you registered for this one, you actually get access to all of our EMS, our Entrepreneur Master Series, on a monthly basis. The next Entrepreneur Master Series is going to be coming up on May the 24th at 3:30 Central Time. And the topic is how to use life insurance to get permanent compounding interest on your money. And my special guest co-presenter for that one is going to be Jason Weiss, who's the founder of Symphony Advice and Symphony Wealth, another Nashvilleian. Another guy right here locally is going to be coming on. And I know that some of you who are in here today know Jason Weiss personally. I know some of you know him personally. But Jake has done a fantastic job. So, Jake, thank you so much for being here on this today. It's very, very good to work with you as a client, where you're my client and also I'm one of your clients. It's good to have that reciprocal relationship. Thank you for being a part of that. And Jake, also, thank you for sharing your expertise today. I think this is going to be really helpful to get people to save some money. And I love what you said. You could go make another $1 million in revenue, but if you're not any more profitable in that million, wouldn't it be just easier just to lower some overhead and figure out how to make some more money on what you're already doing? So that's really, really good. The last thing I'll say before we sign off of today's webinar is, first two things. And number one, thanks for pushing through with our technical difficulties when we got started. So we're learning. Actually, I do like this webinar geek thing. Now that I've been to the background watching how it's working, it's pretty cool. We'll make it better, make it even better next time. If you want to learn how to work less and make more, I want to invite you to be a part of my next Business Accelerator. It's a live group coaching cohort that I do on a pretty regular basis. My next one doesn't start until May the 19th. But if you're interested, I'm going to put in the public chat right now. If you just go down there to the chat and you click on that link, Exit Without Exiting, and use that code, you can go all the way to the bottom of the page and go ahead and check out, and you get $500 off the next one. I will teach you the 4 principles on how to exit without exiting, how to work less, and how to make more. And a lot of what I talk about, Jake just told you. He said, this is what I do. So it marries really well with what Jake's got going on, which is why I invited him here today. So, Jake, before we sign off, I'm going to give you the last word. Is there anything you want to say, any advice, information, content, anything you want to share before we sign off today?
Oh, man. In one go, huh? No, be intentional, guys, right? Like get re-inspired, reignite your fire for leading your company. Wake up, have a good morning routine, and get intentional. So I think I'd sum it all up and say, go lead better. And if you need some help with that, reach out to me and Jason. Lead better tomorrow.
All right. Well, thanks, Jake. I appreciate you being here. Thanks, everybody, for joining. I'll see you at next month's Entrepreneur Master Series. The Real Jason Duncan signing off. See you next time.